We believe that you are strong by design, and you were made in God's image to have a strong body, mind, and spirit. You're listening to the #1 strength and health authority podcast in the world. So let's get ready to unlock your potential and transform your life in today's episode. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Strong by Design podcast. This is host Coach Chris Wilson today. As you know, if you're a return listener of the Strong by Design podcast, we kind of rotate through different hosts. We all have our strengths or our certain topics that we like to tackle with our guests. We have Coach Tanya, who's more of a holistic health practitioner, so she does a lot of things in the holistic side, nutrition side, diets, and taking control of your health in your later years. We have, of course, the founder of Critical Bench, Mike Westerdahl, who loves to talk about leadership and coaching and some faith-based content. And then I'm a little bit of everything. I kind of wear, I'm the utility player, if you will. I love fitness and health. I love strength. I love talking about mindset, which is going to be the focus of the conversation today with our amazing guest. But we're going to go in a lot of different directions with today's conversation because mindset applies to all areas of our life. I want to quickly say to anyone who's a new listener, first of all, thank you for finding the Strong by Design podcast. We ask that, of course, at the end of this episode, you share it with a friend or family member if this is an episode or a topic that can help them move in a better direction. Of course, hit that 5-star rating and or review. And, we just, every week is a little bit different because our show tackles topics about the body, about the mind, about the spirit, and those worlds often all come together. And so, again, we're going to kind of go in different directions today, but I think this topic applies to all three of those quite well. Our guest today is Cody McBroom. Now, Cody is, he kept popping up. Every time I was clicking around on iTunes and looking at different podcasts and looking at top performing podcasts in the fitness and health space, I kept saying his name, and I started checking his show out. And he's really great, really good at communicating his thoughts. He has a really good understanding of fitness. He's tried a little bit of everything. He's in terrific shape. He falls right in line with a lot of the things that we do here at Strong by Design. His coaching program is called the Tailored Coaching Method. We'll be talking about that later in the episode. But I really wanted to do some backstory, so you can get a feel for our guest. I think he'd be a tremendous person for you to follow, to listen to with his really terrific podcast show. And so, Cody, thank you for taking the time to be on Strong by Design today, man.
Man, it's an honor to be here, and I'm really excited that I kept popping up coincidentally in your search for other things.
I mean, it was legitimate. Sometimes what podcasters like podcasting with other podcasters. I know it sounds crazy, right? But it's true. It's like it's a platform where those are the people that are, talking to the world and having conversations with other people talking to the world, and it just makes sense to then do that with somebody that has a strong following in the same category as you. And we just kept seeing Boom Boom and Cody McBroom and all this stuff. And I'm like, wow, this show's really good. And read some ratings and reviews, listened to some episodes, and was really impressed with the topics that you cover and your knowledge. And so it just was a natural fit, really. I'd love for the listeners to know a little bit about your backstory, where you come from. What is your driving force, your inspiration, your motivation to do what you're doing today at such a high level?
Yeah, thank you, man. I'll try to keep my story as brief as possible without leaving anything important out. But I'm born and raised in what's called the Puget Sound area of Washington State. Puget Sound is essentially the water that forms that peninsula and everything around there. So the Puget Sound area is Seattle, Tacoma, Federal Way. There's just a whole bunch around it. And it's a beautiful area. I mean, it's one of the only places in the United States, in my opinion, that you can stand and look in a 360 direction and see the mountains. You can see the forest and the trees and the hills, and you can also see the ocean and the water, and there's lakes everywhere. So it's beautiful. We get a lot of rain, which we were just talking about recently. Yes. So outside of that, it's a beautiful area. I've been born and raised here, and actually my entire life I was kind of the black sheep of my family and friends in a way. I didn't ever step foot in a gym until I was 18 years old after high school was done, which is rare because most of my friends were athletes and they all trained and went to the gym to get better at their sport. I skateboarded a lot growing up, and so I didn't feel the need to train. Now, knowing as much as I know, I wish I would have trained because I would have been much better at skateboarding. But my brother was physically fit. My parents were both physically fit with history in soccer and baseball, karate. And I was just always the chubby kid. I was always the chubby one in my group, chubby kid in my family. And I played sports, but it never was enough to get me lean. Fast forward to high school, I finally kind of hit a growth spurt, started getting leaner from playing a lot of soccer, and I actually got really good. And I made varsity, one of the only 2 freshmen at the entire high school that got to play varsity, and I played with my brother. Great experience because he was a senior. Sophomore year, got injured, tore my meniscus, had surgery, gained some weight. Came back the next year, started playing again, preseason, tore my ACL. And then again, so I went through 2 injuries in high school, which led to gaining a good amount of weight. So just when I finally started kind of leaning out, gained a bunch of weight, I graduated high school, and I was at a place where, I wasn't the best student, to be honest. I was actually a horrible student, and I wasn't really into school. I didn't know what I was going to pursue for a career. My thoughts of going to a junior college or a university for soccer was gone. And I was kind of just in this place of, I'm a young kid. I'm partying. I graduated high school at 17, turned 18 right after I graduated. So I'm 18 years old. I'm partying. My dad told me to go to school at community college for business because his exact words were, "You can talk, so you'll be a salesman in the oil industry," because that's what I do. And I was like, all right, well, I don't have a better plan, so let's roll with that. And eventually I'm at school and I'm trying to rehab my knee, and I'm doing it the wrong way. And long story short, I was in the college gym, and a guy walked up to me and he saw me with a knee brace, and I was doing leg extensions because I figured knee extension, it's probably something I should do. And this is like the booming of the functional movement era. I think this was in 2011. And he came to me and he said, "Hey, I think I have a better way of doing that, a more functional way." And I was just an ignorant 18-year-old. I looked at him. He didn't look like he was in shape. Kind of figured, what the hell does he know? And I just said, "Man, I'm good. Don't worry about it." And he said, "All right, well, if you ever want to learn more, I run the PT program at this college. I'm in building, I think it was 121, if I remember right." Weeks go by. I'm in school. I'm sitting in class, and I'll never forget this. I raised my hand. I was in Business 101. I raised my hand and asked, "How many businesses have you owned?" Because he was teaching a lecture on business and all that stuff. He said none. He had never owned a business. And so at that moment, I actually stood up and I left class because I was just kind of frustrated. I didn't want to be there in the first place. So I left, and I was walking by the PT building. So I waltzed in, and I remember seeing it was functional movement was the class. And there was a baby on the projector, a picture of a baby, and there was all these lines and diagrams he had drawn, and they were going over like a quadruped position and how we should be moving in a certain pattern, right? And it was just the most fascinating thing I had ever seen, because up until that point, I was looking at high intensity. I was looking at like boot camp stuff, just trying to lose weight. I didn't really understand anything, and it blew my mind. And so I actually went home and told my parents I was going to change my degree. I talked to the PT guy. I'm going to become a trainer. They both said no. And understandably, I was still overweight. I had been in the gym for a month or two. And at that point, I didn't have any, proof that I could do much with school. And so long story short, if you're watching, there's a fly in the office buzzing around my face. That's why I keep swatting. There's this one fly that's been in the office this whole time.
We got it. I can't wait, man, because at some point you're going to get that thing. Maybe you get out the chopsticks.
Some Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah.
But anyway, so they said no, and I actually went back to school and I forged my dad's signature, and I jumped in the course without telling him, and I think it was almost got it. I think it was months later, because I was getting the mail and everything, that he finally realized what I had done. But at that point, I had lost, altogether, I ended up losing 50 pounds, getting in really good shape while I was educating myself and I was learning in school. And at that point, they were like, okay, you know what, keep doing what you're doing. We'll roll with it. So finished the PT program, which was at a community college, but it was also ranked top 3 in the country for developing personal trainers and health coaches. I ended up going through a year-long nutritionist course after that. I interned for a strength facility called Vigor Ground, which I ended up later working for. And
that Luca Hosevar's place?
Exactly. Yep. So I was one of the head trainers there for 6.5 years, actually. So I met him. He came and spoke to the college, and I actually met him there. And he was the first person that came in, and I could see some of me in him, because he has a little street vibe to him. And I grew up, skateboarding and hanging out on the streets, and that was kind of the way I grew up around. So he was the first person that wasn't a PT wearing a polo and khakis that came and spoke to us. And I was like, whoa, like, maybe there's something more to this. So I started kind of poking around at his gym, going to the charity events he held, and then I interned for him. And throughout this time, the person that ran that program was so phenomenal. I mean, he was already at the time working with Olympic swimmers as his main thing. He was rehabbing people. I actually interned at his facility as well. And I watched him rehab somebody who moved here from Australia, who got in a car accident, was paralyzed waist down. And he's actually a guest speaker, and he walks into class. Like, he got him to move again. This guy is phenomenal. He's worked with some of the most amazing pro athletes. He introduced me to so many people throughout college. Dan John, Greg Cook, Michael Boyle, Charlie Weingroff, Eric Cressy, Luca, just so well known. His name's Tim Vagan. So he's not popular on social media and everything, but in the old school legendary strength world, he's a legend. And it was a really great person to run into. Very serendipitous. I was really blessed to be able to meet him. And I ended up working at Vigor Ground, and I told him what I wanted to do, which was build an online coaching company. And at the time, it was just a fitness website is what I said, because I was blogging. And he asked me how that would make money. Luca did. And I said, I have no idea, but I know there's some people doing it. And he said, all right, well, train people for 5 years in person, get the experience, and you'll have the right to do that. 6.5 years later of training people 6 days a week at that gym, going to seminars almost monthly, attending everything I can, doing course after course, certification after certification. Found out I was going to have my daughter, and that was the thing that nudged me to say, I got to make my move. So in 2017, I branched off. I gave up 100% of my clientele at the gym to make sure I just left with respect. And I started Boom Boom Performance, which now is Tailored Coaching Method. We have 10 coaches that are around the world, so we're international. We have a full-time media guy, full-time operations lady. We have a chief science officer who is Dr. Brandon Roberts. He has a PhD, and he's a fitness and nutrition researcher. So we're always educating our coaches and kind of up to date on the latest research. And that's what we do now. We coach people and create a lot of content, and we're the Tailored Coaching Method. So in a nutshell, that's kind of how the evolution of this all began. And it was just my own personal journey turned into what it is today, which has been an amazing thing to get into. Yeah,
man. I'll tell you, it's so great because it sounds so similar to my journey and to other people's experiences. Is when you're surrounded by high-level, skillful, intelligent, experienced people, and that's where it starts. It's and that could be one person or it could be a group. When you get that mentoring and that coaching, and it just levels you up instantly. When you're surrounded, when you're in a room and you feel like the dumbest guy in a room, that's the best room you can be in. And so that, we go out of our way to do that. The founder of our business has gone out of his way for the better part of, 12 years or more to do that. We started small as a website, like, back in the day, right? We were just a website. That's what you did. In 1999, we had a website, and you sold bench press programs, and we were very one-dimensional, But over the last, 10 plus years, we've totally transformed, and it's really just because of all those relationships that we've established and all those very high level, very smart, gifted people that we were exposed to that help nudge you in the right direction. And obviously that's pretty cool. He said, do that for 5 years. You did a little bit more than 5, 6.5, and you're like, okay, now I'm ready. And you just had that, the knowing that you're going to have your daughter just made so much more sense to be able to kind of go your own way at that point, be in control of your own destiny, so to speak. And It's amazing. So you're reaching people now all over the world with your coaching program, and you have 10 other coaches that you've brought on your team to work with people.
Yep, exactly. And there's not a continent we don't have clients in, and we were almost in every continent as far as coaches go. I mean, Europe, Canada. I mean, as far as countries, I mean, we had Germany, London, Canada. Here we have a ton of clients. Brazil. Like, we've really been able to spread out, and the goal was to be in every time zone, just so communication's faster. Obviously, it makes the live team meetups that we do every year a little bit more difficult, especially with COVID and everything. But we've just been expanding, and it's all been organic. This is just there's no ads, there's no funnels, there's no crazy game. It's truly just being a go-giver and giving as much value as we can to everybody that we possibly can. And those who need a more tailored approach, they come on board for coaching. And that's why we called the company Tailored Coaching Method. I mean, at a certain point, Boom Boom Performance, I started as a blog. For those listening, my nickname has always been Cody Boom Boom McBroom. It started in soccer. It's actually my brother's nickname. And then when I came on the soccer team, it was the Boom Boom Brothers. And it just stuck. Everybody just always kept calling me Boom Boom for whatever reason. And so I started Boom Boom Performance as a blog. And once I started taking on a lot of clients, and then I hired my first coach, I started kind of thinking of like, man, maybe this isn't the right name, but I was too afraid to change it. And a couple years ago, at the beginning of 2019, I think it was, that we officially launched Tailored Coaching Method. It was just a thing of like, this is becoming something so much bigger than me, and I want it to continue growing bigger than I'll ever be by myself. And it's selfish to be called something after myself. And on top of that, Boom Boom Performance doesn't describe what we do at all. Tailored Coaching Method does. So we made the shift, and it was one of the best moves we've made from a business perspective, because it really solidified who we are.
Yeah, and that can be hard for people sometimes, because you feel like stuck, like that's our brand. That's how do we do that? We're gonna lose people, we're gonna lose ground, but really ultimately it's just a name, and it's all on you. It's like, if you can overcome your own bias or your own feelings about it, go with what makes more sense. What's more. And we've gone through some of those same issues over the years, and it's, again, it can be challenging to navigate, but it's a lot of mindset stuff, and it brings me to really what I want to kind of go into, based on a conversation that you had started on your podcast about mindset, about consistency, about goal setting, and accomplishing things. And that's oftentimes why people are stuck. It's because the consistency just is not there. And if you can dial back a few weeks from and recall some of that topic that you were covering in depth on your show, which is really cool. A lot of his episodes are shorter, like 20 to 30 minute episodes, which are great for people. Like on the drive to work, it was perfect. I think I hit go when I left my house, and as I was pulling in the parking lot, you were just wrapping up. So it's really good. And oftentimes you do have guests, but you do a lot of solo stuff where you just kind of go at a topic and just kind of crush it for 20, 30 minutes. And it's a really good thing to kind of stew on for the day, because I remember thinking about that, a lot of what you brought up throughout the course of my day. It was a really good thinking, heady thing, mental shift type stuff. So why don't you share with the audience a little bit where you were coming from, what you were trying to reveal to your audience? Can
you remind me? So for those listening, I do a Mindset Monday every single week. So can you remind me what the title of this was? Because I've talked about consistency quite a bit.
That was the episode 629, How to Be Relentlessly Consistent. And so you had said how to overcome the obstacles, become relentlessly consistent. Exactly how to stay motivated, relentless, and continue pursuing your goals without slowing down.
Yeah. So this is, I think it's obviously, this is a category that applies to every single area of life, and everything I do, I try to focus on, and there's a lot of people who spin this a bunch of different ways. So there's different coaching programs and entrepreneurial philosophies. And I originally heard it from what's called Wake Up Warrior way back. And they talk about body, being, balance, business. And it's essentially your body is your physical health and nutrition and training, all that. Being is yourself spiritually, your spiritual belief, your faith, your mindset, your confidence, emotional well-being. Balance is relationships and family. And then business is your business. Every single lesson in life, every single topic I talk about with these mindset ideas, or even just the idea of being relentlessly consistent, is going to apply to each of these areas, because you need to be relentlessly consistent in all these areas if you want to reach a long-term goal. And if you let any of these one of these 4 pillars crumble, I always say the kingdom crumbles, right? You have 4 pillars that are helping your kingdom kind of stand tall. And that's ultimately what is going to allow you to continue to thrive. Now, as far as being relentlessly consistent, I believe there was quite a few different things I went into with this whole idea, but I think one thing that's helped a lot of clients quite a bit, and it's helped me quite a bit as well, is a lot of visualization on the front end of anything I do. And I believe that if you don't vividly imagine what the end goal is and where you will be and how that will feel once you're there, it's very hard to commit to a journey of consistency, because we all know that any result that's going to last long term, it's going to take a while. I mean, we were just talking about this. Like, he said 5 years. I went 6.5 years training people every day before I started. You were just bringing up 1999. I mean, that's over 20 years ago of working at a single journey. Now, the goal evolves. That's why we have to be process oriented, not outcome oriented, right? So although we need to visualize that outcome, we need to embrace and enjoy the process and understand what we're doing along the way. Otherwise, we're so attached to this end goal that it's going to be impossible to be satisfied, right? The process is the fulfillment. If we reach the end goal and we're just check off a box, now what, right? This is why Olympic athletes who pursue training for 10 to 20 years to get to the podium, and then they get there and then they retire, they get depressed. Why? Because it wasn't the gold medal that fulfilled them. It's satisfying, but the fulfillment comes from the process. So you need to be able to recreate that process in life. And that's why life is about expansion of yourself, right? So this is huge for people, by the way, that have issues with the scale or are trying to lose weight. If you're so attached to the number on the scale, you'll never be satisfied. You need to really engulf yourself in that process to be fulfilled. But one of the things I do with visualization is this idea of pain and pleasure, right? And we have pain and pleasure on the front end of where we're at right now, and we have pain and pleasure on the back end of where we are going to be. And I don't know if this is exactly what I spoke about in that podcast, but I think this is going to be really helpful. And if you want to detour me to another part of that, please do after this. On the front end of the pain and pleasure, where I'm at right now compared to where I want to be. Number one, the pleasure is comfort. Where I'm at right now, I have already accomplished. So where I sit at this very moment is now becoming my comfort zone. This is homeostasis, right? This is where I feel normal. I don't have a fire under me. I don't have a big push. I don't have anything creating any type of drive or scarcity or fear that could be also motivation depending on your perspective of which you look at it, right? And so that is the pleasure. The pleasure is not having to change. It's comfort. Now, the pain is the same thing. It's being where I'm stuck. It's being right here. So when I first started my weight loss journey, I had 50 pounds to lose. The thing that triggered me, I didn't understand this concept at the time, but it was very real. I looked in the mirror transparently for the first time ever. I avoided the mirror. I avoided the scale. I avoided pictures if I could, because I was just really unhappy. But it was the first time and sorry for the vivid image, people, I got out of the shower, I went to the mirror naked and looked at myself, and it was just really just upset. But I was honest with myself. Like, what are you doing? Why are you living your life this way? You have one life, you have one body. This is your vessel to take you from point A to point B throughout your life, and you are not optimizing it. You're not living it in the body that you could potentially live it in, right? And you have every reason to accomplish it. There's nothing really holding you back except your own self-discipline and willingness to take action and change, right? So that was the pain. So for people listening, your pleasure is your comfort zone, but your pain is that same comfort zone. It's staying where you're at because you're not fully satisfied or fulfilled or happy with where you are at, which is why as you're listening to this, you're imagining your end goal. If you have an end goal, it means you want change, right? It means that you want something different than where you're at right now. So that's your pain and pleasure right now. Now, that pain and pleasure has to be greater than the pain that it will require to reach your future pleasure. So this is where we look at it on the back end. Where I want to be back then is 50 pounds lighter. Where I want to be right now is with a bigger business, with more people involved. It's with, a happier family. It's with more financial security. It's with, better six pack, whatever the end goal is. That's my pleasure, right? And I have to visualize that, because if I don't visualize it, it's not real. And right now I don't have it, so it's not real, right? So if I can vividly imagine and vision and meditate and pray on this and really like think about it and picture myself in that, and picture what it would feel like to look at myself in the mirror that way. Picture what it would feel like to walk into a room. Picture what it would feel like to be the jacked dad at the lake when all the families are getting together. Whatever that thing is for you or for me, I have to imagine that, and that's my pleasure that I'm seeking. The pain is the work that's required to get there, right? The pain is meal prepping. The pain is training. The pain is getting more sleep. The pain is saying no sometimes to drinks or to food, and as much as we want to promote flexible dieting, and we do, the reality is if you want to lose weight, if you want to get healthy, if you want to get lean, there's some self-discipline in there. You do have to sacrifice some things that are really enjoyable for us at times. We don't restrict, we limit, but limitation is still sacrificing at times, right? But the pain of that hard work and that sacrifice and what it takes to get to that future pleasure, that pain is never going to be greater than the pain of where I'm at right now, as long as I vividly vision that. And a lot of people avoid that too. They don't accept, own, and admit to themselves they're not happy with where they're at. And this isn't about creating doubt against yourself or self-hatred. And I don't ever want to promote those kind of things. It's looking at it from a sense of, I'm going to be honest with myself, but I'm also going to see the future and see how that there's a possibility for me to get there, right? And the pain that is required to get to that future pleasure is not nearly as bad as the pain of me being stuck right here, right? Life is not about being complacent and static. It's about expansion and growth and learning and getting better and personally developing and loving more and giving more and producing more. That's what it's about. So to me, the best way to get relentlessly consistent amongst multiple strategies that can probably relate to this, it always starts with that pain and pleasure and that vision session, right? We used to always talk about vision boards, which I don't have a vision board anymore, but it's kind of similar, right? It's really vividly imagining yourself of where you could be and then pinpointing these pains and pleasures, maybe writing it down in a journal if you need to, and understanding the association and the balance between them. And that gives you a drive to accomplish that future pleasure or outcome that is unmatched compared to anything else, because you took the time to visualize what those outcomes and where your starting point truly is.
Our team would like to thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. And if you're enjoying today's show, please share this episode with at least one friend or family member who will benefit from this message. And please subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Go to strongbydesignpodcast.com. That's strongbydesignpodcast.com. Let's get back to the show.
It's funny. It's such a instantly reminds me of youth football or high school football when I was growing up, and the coaches having you use imagery and visualization of making a play. I don't so much remember it in school, these lessons, as I do on the field. And the coach would say, you got to see yourself making that form tackle, like really truly take yourself to the moment when you're going to make contact with the runner and how your body is lining up and positioning, where your head is, where your arms are, how you're driving your legs, what that looks like and feels like. And you kind of put yourself there. And then, obviously then you go through the reps and the practice of it. And once you get those reps and it becomes real when you start to visualize it, or as you said, when you start writing things down, or creating a board, like on a dry erase board, create a vision board of some kind with little bubbles and lines and arrows and things that help to bring it to life, so to speak. You have to water. You have to put those roots in some soil and water it and take care of it a little bit, because if you're not investing some of that imagination and creativity and thinking and writing and stuff, then those things that will make your life better won't ever happen. They just become fleeting thoughts rather than legitimate goals, with action steps and a plan to get there. And that's all what this is.
there's actually some good research about that in sport. So with physical sport and even powerlifting of athletes visualizing a lift before it happens. And there's very good research to show that they're going to perform better. We took a break from doing interviews on our podcast during the summer just because scheduling, but we just started back up, and I haven't aired it yet, but we had Dr. Caroline Leaf, who is a neuropsychologist, and she studies, phenomenal woman, and she studies the mind versus the brain, how they're different. And we talked a lot about this and the placebo effect, and a lot of the speaking into the universe, which is kind of tied to what I'm saying here. A lot of it is because those who believe in that being real, it's not necessarily that you can just speak something and it happens. It's because when you speak something with conviction to yourself, you create self-belief, and self-belief drives actions, right? So I'm not by any means saying, hey, if you visualize it, you're going to be handed it on a silver platter, right? You still have to do the work. But the truth is your willingness to do that work and your motivation to stay consistent with that work increases tremendously once you create that vision and you say it to yourself with certainty and with confidence, right? That fuels self-belief. And without self-belief, consistent action is impossible. It just doesn't happen. And, I did a podcast on this too. It's called the success loop. And this kind of feeds into this whole idea. And a lot of people, they chase motivation and hoping that fuels action, and those actions are going to create results, right? But the reality is it starts with action, right? So do these things that create self-belief, journal, visualize, do all these things I'm talking about. But ultimately, it takes action, right? So people say, how do I start getting consistent? You just do it. How do I get better at public speaking? You just do it. How do I start exercising? You just do it. It all just starts with action. But action produces results. And results, especially results you've created yourself, are the most motivating thing you'll ever find. Way more motivating than this podcast, way more motivating than any YouTube video. As much as I want you to listen to this and all mine and everything, the truth is action fuels results. Your own results will fuel more motivation, and that motivation is going to lead to more action, which leads to more results, more motivation. And it's this circle of results. And it starts with action, not seeking out a motivational speech or a keynote speaker that's going to fire you up to do something. You got to find it within. And a lot of that comes from internally visualizing all this.
That's right. Yeah, nothing happens. Famous quote, forget who said it, but somebody really, really smart, probably like Einstein or something. Nothing happens until something moves. And it's true. I mean, it's true for your mind. It's true for your body. You're not going to get anywhere until something moves. And even if the action isn't exactly what you were hoping it would be, like here, one of our core values is decisiveness. And all that is action. Do something, even if it wasn't the right thing or the best thing to do, but it was something, and you learn from that, and then it helps you move in the direction that you're supposed to move in. You learn from that. It's kind of like failures aren't just failures. They're learning opportunities, right? When you make mistakes with something, it's just an opportunity to learn. Well, next time when I do that, I'll just do it a little bit different, and I'll have a better outcome. And so inaction doesn't get you anywhere. So it really is. And then connected to that, obviously, is the stuff that like Craig Ballantyne, who's a really big coaching guy and a friend of ours, he talks about freedom through structure. And when you have structure, that leads to consistency. And it's really simple stuff like planning out your day in advance, writing things down on a calendar, time blocking. It's just, everyone's heard this before, but this stuff works. And when you're consistently doing that, like getting up at a certain time, even if it's 5, 10, 15 minutes earlier than you did the day before, but you start to build momentum with that, and you find, wow, in that 5, 10, 15 minutes, I was able to, prep my food for the day, or I was able to, meditate, or I was able to, go for a short walk with my dog, or, something good, something positive happened in that very brief moment of time that moved me in a better direction. And now if I consistently do that, without even trying, I lost 4 pounds last month, just because I, went for a short walk with my dog, or I drank an extra few cups of water every day, or, just little good habits replacing bad habits in your 24 hours. And it's just so many lessons there, everything that you just shared. It just gets my mind spinning and these are real real world things. Like guys like you and me, we're not robots. Like we have our moments where we screw up or sleep in or have a lazy day or have a, but it doesn't mean that, oh, okay, well then everything else is going to go to crap because I had like a bad moment or a bad day. Like it's not going to, like tomorrow, like we can cut it off and like make tomorrow what it needs to be and get back, back on track. I think a lot of people, when they're consistent for a short period and then they fall off, they have a bad moment, a bad day, then they're like, screw it. And then it's like, oh, well, you know what? I'll try it again next month rather than no, just start back up tomorrow.
There's a lot right there that I think is so great, man. Even the lessons, the failures aren't failures, they're just lessons. I think that's one thing. And this is just a quick note for people. People who are successful in any endeavor of life don't care how repeated or cheesy a saying is. They will believe it if they know it's true, right? So a lot of people be like, oh yeah, I know. Failures aren't failures. They're just lessons. Well, it's the people that actually live by that keep winning. Because for every win, they have 10 losses, but they don't focus on losses. We don't even know their losses. We just know that they keep winning, right? So it's being able to do that. Even this visualization, like, okay, I'll visualize it, right? People think it's cheesy, but it's the people who devote themselves to those quote unquote cheesy things that are proven to work by experience, right? It's not a coincidence that every single successful person does a lot of these things. That was how it was for me with meditation. I just was not into it. And then I was like, okay, but that guy meditates. She meditates. He meditates. All these people meditate. They're all very happy and successful and fulfilled. I think I should probably meditate and figure this whole meditation thing out, right? So I think it's really important to look for those, success leaves clues, another cheesy saying, but like, it's true. So look back and see what those clues are and use them to your advantage. And I also think that a lot of this comes down to people giving themselves more grace, giving themselves more self-acceptance in the sense that when you fall off plan, and you screw up and then you just say, oh, screw it. I'm going to eat all the cookies or I'm going to do all this or I'm already off plan. A lot of that is because you lack worthiness, as crazy as that seems. And there's a lot of really good books that I could recommend on this, but when we have a lot of self-worth and self-acceptance, we give ourselves grace on those little things because we know that we're just human and we know that things happen. And we can also separate our emotional and logical brain in those scenarios and go, okay, like I ate a cookie, but eating one cookie is better than eating 6 cookies, right? Or just deciding to say, screw it, let's have some drinks too. Like you can sit there and really understand your logical brain and go like, speaking of calories and what's going to lead me to my goal, is accidentally eating 200 calories extra okay compared to saying screw it and eating 2,000 calories extra? Obviously. But emotionally, if we're stuck in that emotional state, we won't make that decision. And I do think it comes from a lot of just self-acceptance and worthiness and being able to separate that, right? And be able to do that in that situation. I think the Craig Ballantyne saying, which I know Craig pretty well as well, structure equals freedom is huge. And a lot of people think structure equals restriction, but it's not true because if we look at, especially in the diet world, I use it all the time because a lot of people, they think tracking macros and tracking data and all this stuff is almost like an OCD or neurotic behavior. But if you ask them, like, if you want to save money to go on a family vacation and you're like, hey, like you're going to start a budget plan and a savings system to like save money and put away? Of course, I'm going to track it all, make sure I save it. It's like, okay, well, why is that different than tracking something and having a budget plan for your body because your body is the goal compared to a family vacation? It's really no different. But lack of structure creates overwhelm, anxiety, stress, all those kind of things, right? So anxiety is quite literally the feeling of stress based on the unknown that's to come. Right. So if I'm going into a situation, I do not know what the outcome is going to be, I am 10 times more likely to be anxious about the situation because I don't have control over it. I don't know what's going to happen. But if I create a plan and I have structure over my schedule, over my diet, over my training, over the progress I'm going to make to get to my results, that gives me structure, which gives me less anxiety, and that equals freedom. Right? That's the path to getting me where I want to be and ultimately making sure that I can avoid those anxious feelings that people get, right? Unless, and this is the last thing I'll say about this, unless the anxious feeling is actually excitement, because a lot of people do get anxiety about things they're excited about. They mistake, because it's a very similar neurochemical that's going on in your brain where when you're really excited about something, you actually will get anxiety as well. But if you reframe it in your mind of my anxiety is my excitement, I think it'll help you out quite a bit. And you'll be able to do some of those things that make you quote unquote anxious that you're really excited about, because they're good things.
No doubt about that. Yeah, living in a state of like worry, concern, anxiety, stress doesn't sound appealing to anybody, right? It's a lot of wasted energy, and it can be tiring, and you're dripping cortisol left and right all day long, and it can lead to just a lot of like long-term poor health problems, gut issues, and depression, and just long-term not a very good place to be. But what happens when you start to just have these little wins in your day, whether it's something that a new habit that you started kind of adopting in your mornings, or at lunchtime, or at the end of your, some people aren't morning people. I get it. So don't necessarily wake up earlier. That maybe do something in the middle of your day. Have that middle of the day walk, or get up a little bit more often. And you're always serving yourself better to break away from something that you're doing and give yourself like chunk your time up in like 90 minute blocks or something. Go for a short walk. Go get a cup of water. Go outside and get some sun for a minute. All these little things that can improve your quality of life, if done regularly, will yield terrific results. It's just so many people are great at starting things and just not sticking with them.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. To help our show reach more listeners just like you, please let us know how we've changed your life by leaving a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Go to strongbydesignpodcast.com. That's strongbydesignpodcast.com. Let's get back to the show.
I've been in the fitness and health industry for the better part of 2 decades. I graduated college in 1998. 99, 2000, I was working for Ben Prentice. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but Prentice Hockey Performance used to be called Body Tuning. And he formed a relationship with Charles Poliquin back in the day. And I was learning all kinds of amazing things from those guys, 20 years ago, and all the way up until today. But you know what? I still got a coach to help me lose weight 4 months ago because I was frustrated where I was and knew I could lean out, knew I could get in better shape. I needed accountability. And I needed tracking, I needed to log stuff, and I needed somebody who was going to ask me and confront me and hold me accountable. So I started using the MyFitnessPal app. I log everything that I eat. I know exactly what goes into my body every single day, counting all my macros. It's way easier than I ever thought it was. It's not nearly as annoying. It's actually kind of fun. I enjoy it now. And I've lost 20 pounds since Memorial Day. And went from 220 down to 200. Now I'd probably have a little bit more weight to lose, and I want to. But I was kind of like I felt like the out of shape strength fitness guy. I mean, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I work hard, I do a lot of stuff, but I just was not happy with where I was at. And I said, even though I know what to do in my brain, it's still not happening. So what can I do now? Okay, well, I need to do something I've never done before. I have to hire a weight loss coach, and I have to start tracking every single thing I eat. And then, sure enough, it worked. Okay, so knowing what to do is only one part of it. It's fulfilling that and having the consistency, right? And the momentum and the accountability and all those other things. Having a coach like you guys, like what your team's doing, right? No different. Have you heard of Will Grazione, the educated dieter?
Yeah, I'm good friends with Will. Yeah, really good friends with him.
Yeah, Will is local here. He's a good friend of ours. He comes and works out with us, and Mike and I got on his program like 4 months ago, and it's been great. But it just shows you anybody will benefit from these kinds of steps in their life. It doesn't matter what level you're starting at.
Dude, I have so much to say on this. Can I just open this door real quick? Because this fly is driving me crazy.
Get rid of that damn fly.
Hold on one second. But no, I mean, dude, I could say so much on this entire topic. And I think, a good way for people to, and because I do the same thing. If I'm serious about a goal, or I'm like, all right, it's time to get real lean or anything, I hire a coach, period. Because accountability is something that we as humans, we just need, period. It's a lot of times why and I've said this on the podcast too, when I have goals or I plan on doing something big for the business or anything, I actually just start throwing out little like teasers and hints and statements on the podcast publicly, because that public confirmation or statement being thrown out there actually holds me personally accountable. It's public accountability, right? Yep. But there was an interesting study that showed actually, you can increase your likelihood. It was by the American Journal of something. I can't remember. I actually just wrote a newsletter about it recently. But you can increase your likelihood of achieving a goal by 65% if you have some form of accountability, and up to 95% if within that accountability you have monthly meetings, which is crazy because as coaches and doing nutrition coaching, we have weekly meetings with our clients. So it's like, imagine the success rate going from trying to do it on your own to having a coach. And this is why I tell people it is an investment, but you can spend months and months and months and months trying to do it on your own, spinning your wheels, or you can just invest and actually achieve that like you did with Will. And Will's a great coach. He's a great dude. I've known him for a long time. But I think that accountability factor is just something that you can't replace. As a human being, we need that feeling of support. We need that, it's like a tribe in a way, as well as a community. And that's ultimately the only way you're going to get where you want to be. It's kind of the glue that holds all the strategies together. So even if you understand the science and the strategies, you need that glue to keep you consistent and keep you going, That's
right. Yeah. I mean, any high level person, I mean, Michael Jordan had a coach. He was Michael Jordan. He still had somebody like holding him accountable and showing up and making him show up. And, the best, if you're the best at something, you have to still work at being the best at it. And like you said, it goes back to what you were saying in the beginning. It's the process you have to absolutely fall in love with. It's the journey that keeps you going, that keeps you hungry, that keeps you motivated, that keeps you just alive and feeling like you have purpose. It's not just, yes, the destination, the goal, the outcome, the gold medal, the championship, all that stuff's great. But like locally here, the Tampa Bay Lightning, won the Stanley Cup. Was what made winning the Stanley Cup great was everything that they did up until they hoisted the cup in the air. You know what I mean? Like everything else was what made that so special. It wasn't just that, those 5 minutes of the ceremony. It was everything else. The journey there was what was made the impact and is what they'll always remember and is what's so gratifying.
Well, and you mentioned part of that process is tracking. So you're tracking MyFitnessPal, using these things. And it can seem very tedious to a lot of people. It sounds like you've kind of gamified it, so you've been able to enjoy the process.
Yeah, I've made it like a fun thing.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot that could be said there, and I think a lot of people need to understand too is, number one, it's again the pain and pleasure thing. If doing this tedious task is going to lead you to something that is not only more effective and efficient, but it's more sustainable because you did it the right way. But also, if we look at how we can enjoy the process, it's by literally tracking these things. Because if we're not tracking our calories, our weight, our sleep, our performance, how do we even know that we're improving? And if we're only looking at one thing, which is a scale, we have 1 out of 20 metrics that are showing us we're improving. So there's a lot of times you can improve all these metrics and your scale's not even changing. It doesn't mean you're not improving. And it also takes this scale off the pedestal because we realize that it's equal to macro consistency, performance, biofeedback, stress, mood, motivation, sleep, all these different things. They're all on the same level. So nothing is being put on a pedestal, and we can eliminate this fear or this issue with the scale that a lot of people have. And as we see these things improve, now we're like, hell yeah, I like this tracking thing because I can see like now I'm consistent with my numbers on MyFitnessPal and I see this number going up, this one going up. I hit a new PR. I'm sleeping better. Like my mood is better. My motivation is higher. Like, okay, this is working. And then you get more consistent. And guess what? As you do something consistently, it gets really easy. Tracking macros becomes simple after a while. Yep. And then, Last but not least, there's also there's some science to show even just checking something off. And this is like, I don't know if you're a Seinfeld fan. I love Seinfeld, but this is something that actually Jerry did in real life. He had his red X method, and it was basically like he wrote a joke every day, and that's how he kept going. He wrote a red X on the calendar every day. He wrote a joke. Once you see like 3 or 4 red X's, you do not want to mess up that streak, right? It's a habit tracking system, but it's even with consistency of macros. You don't want to ruin that. Your biofeedback, you don't want to ruin that. When you're on a roll, even if you have a bad day, you're probably still going to track because you want to see that you're consistently doing the routine. You're consistently tracking, right? And when we check off these boxes, right? We check the X on the calendar. We write in our tracker or whatever it may be. There actually is a dopamine kick. It's why people get addicted to Instagram, because when you get a like, it's a like and you get a dopamine kick, and that reward center in your brain goes, oh, I like that. Like, keep watching. Let me get more likes, and it's sad, but it's very true.
Right.
Well, I've talked about this as well. Why can't we use that dopamine and that addiction to likes in Instagram or this addiction to this reward center that we use typically for bad things? People smoke cigarettes. People get addicted to bad habits. Let's trick our body and our brain to get addicted to success habits, right? If that's walking, if that's sending appreciation, if that's praying or meditating or training or anything, mark a red X and you will get addicted to this checking of the box, but it's fueling a very positive thing in your life that's going to lead to less negative sedations in your life and more positive things that make you a better human being. So we do this with a lot of clients, and I think this is why great coaches in the training and nutrition space in general, they really focus on more than just training or nutrition. This is why this mindset stuff is so important, is because I can give you the science of nutrition. I can tell you exactly what to eat, when to eat, how to eat it, macros, all that stuff. I can do whatever you need me to do. But if I don't get you to enjoy the process, if I don't get you to have some discipline, if I don't get you to understand that you need to give yourself grace, have some self-acceptance, that you're never going to be perfect, that we're talking ranges of macros, not specific macros, because you can't be specific. We don't know exactly how much protein's in a 4-ounce chicken breast. We don't. So it's all just really good estimates, right? So we build these things, and then we show them this way of I say getting addicted to success. And I don't want that to sound bad because it's not a literal addiction, but it's getting really infatuated with this idea of self-improvement. And it's using these dopamine, these habitual tracking tools and practices to get you in such a good routine and structure so you have that freedom, less anxiety, and fulfillment in the process. And when we do that, and this is where a lot of entrepreneurs and people who can keep pushing, you wonder why they can keep pushing. It's because they're not focused on that outcome, right? And a lot of times, and I've done this, and at the beginning it actually kind of haunted me because it was almost like I can never be satisfied. But then I understood what was going on. I was like, no, it's because I'm constantly fulfilled. This is good. I set a goal right before I hit my first goal. So I set a goal and I'm working. Right before I get to that goal, I already set the next one, because I know for a fact if I don't do that, I'm going to hit this goal and then I'm going to have a lull period of like, oh shit, it's over now. Like, I guess go back to drawing board or what? No, I already have the next thing going, so I can go, awesome, check it off. Let's celebrate. Let's be happy. Let's pat ourselves on the back. Let's reflect and understand why we did what we did. Look at the failures for lessons, but we're keep moving because I'm on a journey, right? It's the fulfillment. It's the process. So the process never ends. And you got to be prepared for that.
Yeah. I'm always, and that's such a great point. People who have that success, mindset, they're always looking for, how can I improve or make that better? How can I do better tomorrow? Every day is a new opportunity, a new choice. And I think, what you said multiple times about giving yourself grace, I've had some days where I wasn't like, I just knew a particular meal. I'm like, well, it's kind of my only option right here. And this is better than this. So, this is what I have. This is what it's going to be. So I'm going to be a little high on my fats today, or, I'm going to be a little short on my protein today, but, whatever, I'll do a better job tomorrow. And so then you have those, what I call like those win days where everything just goes like my drive to work. I listen to the podcast or the audio book. I get my devotional time in the morning. I have a great workout. I get a lot of checks in the box for all the things that I had on my to-do list on my calendar for the day at work. I get out and do something cool and have some fun with my kids or something at night, and it just feels like it's a great day. Well, that feeling, I want that the next day if I can get it, and if I can't get it the next day, then I'm like, well, crap, I guess it's going to have to be Wednesday then, And so you just keep plugging away, knowing that those stumbling blocks, those, those little mess ups are just kind of part of it because of our humanness. But, I just always striving for that. When's that next really good win day going to happen,
Yeah. I call this the 80-10-10 rule, right? And it's really prevalent in training and nutrition, but it works great with what you just said, just life in general. Training for people, like, think of it this way: 80% of your training is progressive. Maybe you add 2.5 pounds to the bar. You might add a rep. It is nothing spectacular, but you're doing the work and you're improving and you're tracking, you're growing, you're doing your thing. 10% is bad. You have bad days, deloads. You're like, I am just not feeling it. The bar feels like it's cemented to the floor. Like, what is going on? And then 10% is just PR city. You're a superhero in the gym. You're crushing it. You don't know why, but you are just killing it, right? Same thing with nutrition. 80% of the time is like you're in your macros. You're pretty damn close. It is what it is, but it's not like exciting. It's not crazy. 10% of the time, you're off. You're just not perfect. You fall off, and that is what it is. And then 10% of the time, you are spot on the dot. You're prepped. You're motivated. It's what it is. And it's the same thing with work. It's the same thing with life. It's the same thing with parenthood. 80% of the time, you're doing really good. And you're on track if you listen to all the stuff we've talked about up until this point, and you've developed the things and the systems and the structures and the mindset to be 80% on point, which is really good. 10% of the time, you need to give yourself grace because you are just not going to be feeling it. No matter what that is. Maybe you're not as attentive at home. Maybe you're not as productive at work. Maybe you just can't think of what to program, or you can't train, or whatever it may be. And then 10% of the time, you're super dad, super boss, super entrepreneur, super coach. You're just crushing it, And it's understanding that, because if you do understand that, you realize when you're in that 10% and you're not feeling it, you're like, okay, this is normal. Like, I got to accept it. Tomorrow's a new day, right? Or when you're in the 80%, you don't get bored because you're like, hey, it's not the most exciting thing, but this is what it takes to get where I want to be. There's a lot of these like pretty good days, and they lead to an amazing result at the end of it.
It's great. I love that. 80-10-10. So remember that, listeners. 80-10-10. It's better than the 80-20, which is kind of what that's the old rule, but I like that there's a third option there, which is very sensible. It's such a great topic, and I hope that everyone out there listening has kind of followed through, and how all of this is connected to our physical health, to our mental health, to our spiritual health, to just being a better person and showing up for other people. When you can, be a little bit, I don't say selfish, but really, doing what you need to do to be the best person you can be, which helps you be the best person for your spouse, for your kids, for your coworkers, for your family members, for your friends. You have to invest a certain amount of time and energy in self-improvement. That's really what all this comes down to. You just take care of yourself, man. You got one shot. You got one body, right? And each day is that new opportunity to maybe try something new and figure something out. I don't know why we fight change so darn much, because change is what moves the needle.
We all want change, but we're afraid to change. But change requires change. It is right. That simple. And I couldn't agree with you more, man. I think that I try to tell people this all the time. Is like, you really do have this one shot to really try your hardest to optimize everything in your life, and you deserve that. Why wouldn't you? And analogy I used to use all the time with nutrition, but I think it can apply to anything, is like, would you rather be or drive a Ferrari or a Ford Pinto? Right? An old Ford Pinto or a brand new Ferrari. Everybody's going to say the Ferrari. They fill it with premium gas. They wash it twice a week. They're always vacuuming. Nobody's drinking anything in my car. Got to keep clean. Ford Pinto, they don't care. Right? But if you realize you're treating your body like a Ford Pinto versus what you would treat a Ferrari, a material item, like, it's so ass backwards. Like, your body should be the Ferrari. It's literally the most priceless prized possession that you have, because it dictates your success and your confidence and your energy and your ability and your function in every capacity of life. Another thing I used to always say, I actually had to print on shirts, was your body is the fastest path to power. And why I said that was because what you just said, everything's connected. I truly believe that your body is the first thing. It's the portal to all this. It's the door that opens up a better mind, a better spiritual life, better relationships, better communication, better financial health, better work ethic, better everything. If you can really work on your body and focus on that and master your body, I think the rest becomes a lot easier, and it applies to everything else so tremendously.
Oh, it's great. Terrific conversation, man. It's really enlightening for me. Some of the things that you've talked about, it's just so in line with what we're doing here. Our core values here as a business, and what really, as I said, moves the needle in your life. And that needle can feel like it's not moving at certain points, but it is. If you're consistent, that needle will continue to move, and it's just like that compass. You're always kind of trying to find north. Just stay at it and keep yourself surrounded by people who are not only just your cheerleaders, but also like a bit of a barometer for you. For accountability and kind of steer you in the right direction when you kind of fall off course a little bit. So, Cody, please, I want our listeners to be able to find more of you, your podcast show, your coaching programs and stuff. Please share some of that with our listeners.
Yeah, thank you, man. So everything can be found at tailoredcoachingmethod.com. We have probably almost 1,000 at this point, if not more, blogs. They're all free articles. We do a research review every month with our CSO. We do a podcast and an article version of that, diving into some of the research and the science on certain topics. And tomorrow, as we're recording this, I think it's research on artificial sweeteners, for example, and diving into that. But we really have a coaching and a science perspective of those. Tons of podcasts, videos, really everything you could think of as far as free content goes. So great place to learn. That's where you can find our coaching program as well. We do individualized nutrition coaching with people around the world. And we have a training app, which can also be found there. So it's a daily training app. It provides workouts that are periodized, safe, and effective for you every single day, whether you want to train 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 days a week, bodybuilding, powerlifting. We have a ton of stuff in there. It's available in the App Store, but you have to go through the website to actually sign up for it. But that's all on tailoredcoachingmethod.com, as well as the podcast, which is the Tailored Life Podcast. And most of my personal content that I put out is on Instagram. And you can just find me at Cody McBroom on Instagram.
Awesome. That's McBroom, McBroom. And there's a lot of great material out there that's just free for you. The app sounds fantastic. All of it can be found, and we will make sure that our description for this episode is filled with some links so that our people can find your stuff. It's been an absolute pleasure. Got to know you better in this conversation, which is what I was hopeful for. And of course, our listeners got to know you better. Sound just like a guy I'd love to hang out with if we weren't separated by about 3,000 miles. I'm here in Tampa, Florida. We are completely as far as we can be, living in the same country, Yeah. That's pretty crazy, but it's been a real pleasure, Cody. Thank you so much for your time.
Likewise, man. Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Of course. Listeners, another terrific episode here on the Strong by Design podcast show. We definitely over-delivered, I think, with some of these tips and strategies to improve your life in mind and body and spirit. Thank you so much. Now's the time to hit that 5 stars. Shoot us a review. We'd greatly appreciate it. And share this episode with somebody who could benefit from being more consistent, relentlessly consistent in their life, as Cody calls it. So that'd be fantastic. Thank you so much. And we'll be coming back next week with another episode, as always, here on Strong by Design. Have an amazing week. God bless you.
Thank you so much for listening to the Strong by Design podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe so that more people can find out about our show. Plus, you don't want to miss any future episodes with the amazing guests and topics we have lined up for you.